Hello everybody, and thank you for joining us for this webinar. We'll begin shortly. I'm just going to wait a few more minutes just for let the last few people join. See everybody signing up. I'm going to turn my webcam off just so we've got the best bandwidth possible for the slides, and turn it on probably at the end for the question and answer session. Thank you very much. There's quite a few people still joining, so we're just going to wait a few more minutes just to give everybody a chance to join before we start. Okay, I think we've got everybody who's, oh, no, we've just had two more join. Just wait a few more minutes, but I think everybody will be just about there. Yep, I think everybody's joined now, so we'll make a start. Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining the webinar. Please feel free to type in any questions you have during the session into the questions section on the webinar panel. I'll be happy to answer them during the question and answer session that we're going to have at the end. Well, who are we? Risk Crew, an elite group of information security governance, risk compliance and testing professionals. We have run and implemented successful projects in diverse sectors such as defence, health, finance, higher education and non-profit organisations. We are so confident of ensuring our tailor-made solutions meet the client's requirements that we offer a 100% satisfaction guarantee. Just a few notes about myself. I'm an information security governance, risk and compliance professional with over 15 years of assisting clients with the implementation of data protection and information security management systems. I'm the acting DPO for several clients. I'm a lead ISO 27001 implementer. I also do internal ISO 27001 auditing role for several clients. Now, the topics we're going to be covering today: data protection due diligence. How much is enough? How do you know what you know? I'm going to be providing 6 what I consider to be essential key performance indicators. Now, data capture and reporting. How much is too much? And as I mentioned, we're going to have an interactive question and answer session at the end. Now, when considering what constitutes evidence of GDPR compliance, you need to think like a regulator, like the Information Commissioner's Office. What would they be looking for? Now, let's start at the top. Are senior management aware of GDPR and its requirements? Are they aware of the personal data risks? And that's any real or potential risks to the personal data. Do they know what the consequences might be if one of those risks were to actually happen? Do they know the scope of GDPR within the organisation? And basically what I'm asking there is, do they know what personal data does the company actually have? Now, compliance with GDPR requirements is mandatory. Non-compliance can result in fines and brand or reputational damage. So how much due diligence is enough? Well, it depends. Enough today may not be enough for tomorrow. Now, we're going to have a couple of these fun facts during the webinar, just to set people's minds. Now, in 2019, why did the ICO fine Marriott Hotels 99 million? Now, we're going to be doing a poll on this. I understand the poll's now open with some answers on. I'll just give you a few moments to pick the answer. What do you think? Why did the ICO fine Marriott Hotels 99 million? Right, hopefully you've all picked your answers. And the reason why they fined Marriott Hotels, the company did not undertake due diligence to secure its systems when it acquired Starwood Hotels. This resulted in 339 million unprotected guest records being exposed. Now, you can read more about this particular data breach in our blog post, which is confusingly titled "The British Airways Data Breach Fine," because it covers both the Marriott Hotels and the British Airways story. Elizabeth Denham, the Information Commissioner, stated at the time, the GDPR makes it clear that organisations must be accountable for the personal data they hold. This can include carrying out proper due diligence when making a corporate acquisition and putting in place proper accountability measures to assess not only what personal data has been acquired, but also how it's been protected. So let's get back on topic. How do you know what you know? Has there been an exercise to identify what personally identifiable information the organisation actually has? It needs to cover HR, of course. What about suppliers and clients? People often forget about suppliers. In each and every case, where did the data come from? Why is it being processed? Where is it being sent? Who has access to the data? Now, has that been understood? Has it been documented? Now, in terms of due diligence, there are 6 essential key performance indicators. These have been selected because they demonstrate that the organisation has taken to GDPR and are endeavouring to meet its requirements. KPIs must be reported on and a report must be reviewed by senior management. It's no good having the KPIs if you don't tell anybody about them. ICO lists reporting on subject access requests, SAR performance, volume of requests, and the percentage completed within the timescales as an important KPI. And in this way, I suppose it is. But it's of very little value to companies if they're only receiving 1 or 2 subject access requests a year. In fact, I have clients who've never received one. So as a KPI, it's pretty meaningful. It tells no real story. It gives you no indications in that type of context. Now, the 6 I've identified here, and we'll be going into them in later slides, they're applicable to the majority, if not all, of the organisations that we come across, that we deal with. They should be relevant to yourselves. Well, the first one, data protection policies. Why do we need them? Well, it's not enough just to have a policy, but policies demonstrate management support and direction for data protection compliance. But to do this, the policy must be a managed document that's reviewed and signed off by management at least yearly. The policy needs to be communicated to all staff and third parties. The policies are evidence, really, of a delegated process of accountability and responsibility from the board down. Staff should indicate that they've read and understood the policy on a yearly basis or when the policy is changed. There should be a formal sign-off from the people to say they've read the policy and they understand it. Policies are supported by documented procedures. Why do we need them? Well, for one thing, they demonstrate that thought was given to data privacy in the operational procedures that have been set up for people to do the work. Procedures ensure that the task is performed in a repeatable way, thereby minimizing any risks. Like policies, procedures should also be reviewed, and after any changes to the system or organization that use them, they should be modified to accommodate those changes. Documented procedures are a very good way of showing that a privacy by design culture is being fostered within the organization. DPIA reports. These are an essential element for any DPO and one of my favorites. The data processing impact assessment is vital, I would say, to the DPO. It allows the DPO to take a holistic view of any proposed processing and the processing environment that it's going to be working in. If done correctly, it provides a structured and repeatable approach to identifying and evaluating the risks to the proposed data processing. It will consider both the people and the technologies to be used. Now, it's important to make that distinction. People and technology are both parts of the GDPR compliance, and you have to assess both. For example, are the people suitably trained and under an applicable contract? Where is the processing going to take place? These are all possible risks to be considered, and if applicable to the proposed processing, measures may be required to reduce or mitigate them. The DPIA reports themselves are documentary evidence of the organization's efforts to be GDPR compliant. While DPIAs are positioned for new processing activities, they should also be undertaken for all legacy processing systems. You never know, there might be inherent privacy risks which have not been identified in these legacy systems. Risk management reports. Now, GDPR itself is a risk-based regulatory framework. And what the regulator is looking for evidence that information risks are managed throughout the organization in a structured way. This demonstrates that management understand the business impacts of personal data and the related risks associated with it and manages them effectively. ISO 27001 uses a structured methodology for risk management, and that's why it's such a good complement to the GDPR compliance activities. With any sort of risk profile approach, you've got to choose the right control to address the identified risk. But you have to be prepared to justify the selection of that control. Think of the regulator. How are you going to justify it to the regulator? Now, any risk management reports themselves provide documentary evidence that you have a risk management process in place and is working. Now, Article 13 documentation. This is Article 13 of the GDPR legislation, and it's the records of processing activities. Article 30 itself lays out the requirements for controllers and processors to keep the registers of what they're doing. A regulator will definitely look for these, so they need to be up to date and accurate. I should say you don't go overboard identifying every single data element and recording it within your register. Be descriptive. The Act allows you to do that. The documents have to be manageable and maintainable going forward without imposing such an excessive management overhead that it just sucks up all your resources. They do need to be reviewed at least yearly. One of the things that I found really helps is if the DPO devises a suitable questionnaire and sends it to the information asset owners. This is the business owner who owns the information asset. It's probably best placed to give you the answers back of what is the information, what is being done with it, and why that processing is taking place. Our staff training reports are a very good KPI. Well, it assumes there is a training program in place, and to be honest, there needs to be one. GDPR training is a requirement. But I would also say do not neglect cybersecurity training. The staff need to be aware of their GDPR requirements, but they need to be able to maintain their accounts, their systems in the face of the cybersecurity landscape that we're operating in. And attacks are coming in on more different vectors, different types, and the staff need to be aware of this. Training reports on who attended and if they passed themselves constitute evidence, so they're valuable for this. We should back this up with routine compliance checks to sort of informally test staff awareness and their understanding of your data protection policies and procedures. You'll be aware, or at least I hope you're aware, of any data breaches, because part of that training should be on how the staff can report data breaches. But you also need to be aware of any near misses. And this is where the organisation has narrowly avoided a data breach. If you're going to collect together the information regarding near misses, then you can look at the training program you have in place. Does it need to be improved? Does it need to be adjusted to eliminate these near misses that are happening? And we've got to the second fun fact here. What indicators does the ICO use to determine what organisation to audit? Now, I think there's going to be another poll on this one. Oh, yep, the poll is open. So I'm going to give you just a few minutes to answer that. Minutes, moments. It's funny, but I don't get to see the results of the poll until the end of the webinar, but I'll be interested to see what you think. Right, you should all have had enough, so here's the answers. It's whether any breaches have been reported, the number and nature of any complaints the ICO have received, the controller's annual statements on controls and other publicly available information, business intelligence, such as media reports, and any other relevant information. Basically, the ICO is looking for the companies which are leaking data, resulting in lots of publicized data breaches. Now, how much is too much? And we're talking about the data regarding compliance here. How do you capture the information you need for a comprehensive view of GDPR compliance? Well, depending on the organization, there may be a vast amount of compliance information available. How much is too much depends to a large extent on the target audience you've got to provide that information to. KPIs provide a useful but partial picture. Senior management need to be made aware of any other pressing GDPR issue, as well as the KPI performance. Routine compliance checks, which are conducted to test staff awareness and understanding of data protection policies and procedures, and the results of those are very good. Can be summarized and presented. But GDPR compliance depends as much on the people as on the technology deployed. So look for other sources, anything that can be distilled Audit reports from various sectors of the organisation can also be used to form a holistic view. Data protection, information security, physical security, and records management related audits, for example. All of these will provide you that information, but the information needs to be analysed and it needs the intelligence of there to provide it in a readable form suitable for the target audience. Now, this is an example question and areas of evidence from an audit, a proposed audit. And as you can see, it's an illustration really which shows there are many areas. Some of them are technology focused, and these may produce highly technical information in their findings. But the output from all of these areas will produce a large amount of compliance data. It won't be relevant to every target audience. Now, this information was actually picked from the ICO website and is available for yourself. We'll include the link to it at the bottom. But what I'm trying to demonstrate here is that for any particular GDPR compliance audit, it will provide an awful lot of information. So the areas of compliance to consider for the audits are large. They can be broken down into various things. Some of them will be technical, some of them people orientated. There's a mix and match. It's what you do with the information that you get and how you present it to your target audience which matters. This is an example here from an audit sheet. It's a complex data source. It's taken from the template from the GDPR compliance audit. While it's a useful tool for capturing source data, it needs to be analysed before the results can be presented in a useful format. Presenting too much data and data which is too complex is not a good idea. You'll lose the target audience's attention if they don't understand the data. You have to make the data succinct and relevant for the people you are presenting to it. Again, this template was available from the ICO website. It's not going to be applicable to everybody, but it's a start. Now, we've gone through a faster pace than I intended, but things to keep in mind, and it comes back to the very first slide. You need to think like a regulator. What would a regulator want to see if they were to visit a particular organisation? Is the senior management aware of GDPR? Are they aware of the personal data risks they might have? Do they know the scope of GDPR within the organisation? Now, do the KPIs that are in place, assuming that you have some, support the above? It really does come back to thinking like a regulator. But one of the things I would stress is that compliance today is not guaranteed compliance for tomorrow. You have to be prepared for when things go wrong. They undoubtedly will, as mistakes do happen. GDPR compliance reduces the risk of a data breach, but it does not completely eliminate it. And don't forget, a data breach can be as simple as somebody emailing the wrong person with the personally identifiable information. That's a data breach. Now, the ICO produce a monthly report detailing their enforcement actions. It's very, very good reading, and it's worth a read. Learn from other people's mistakes and misdeeds. It's better to learn from the others' mistakes rather than from your own. Now, we've gone through this a bit quicker than expected, but we're now up to the questions and answer session. So I'll be very happy to take in any questions you may have. Just looking here to see them all coming. Right, there we go then. Oh, we've got two questions at the moment. The first one is, how common is it that the ICO would audit an organization? Well, I'd have to say it's depending on your situation. To be selected for an audit out of the blue, that would be very uncommon. The ICO does not have infinite resources. The resources it does have generally targeted around investigations leading to enforcement actions. So they're very tailored and very targeted in what they do with their resources. So it's uncommon for the ICO to just turn up and audit an organization. The second question we've got, is it advisable to have an external agent come in and do the yearly audit, or can this be done internally? Well, it all depends on the organization you have. If you have a well sort of funded and resourced internal audit department who are knowledgeable of GDPR and can do their own audits, then there's no reason why you shouldn't use the internal audit department. If you don't have that type of resource available, and even if you do, occasionally it's very beneficial to have an external viewpoint. So having an external company come in to do an audit can be very useful, and that's why companies like Risk Crew get called in to do this type of thing. Occasionally an external view will uncover things the internal audit people can't see. A couple of and another question, will we receive a link to this recording after the session? Yes, indeed you will, and that will be sent out, I think, via an email. Somebody is actually asking here, where do I get my hair done? My hair hasn't been done for several months now, so that's a trade secret, I'm afraid. I did say I would answer all the questions, so let's keep them coming in. All right, another one, a very good question here. Am I aware of any case law or ICO enforcement actions focusing on Article 30? Okay, now there isn't really any specific enforcement actions purely related around the Article 30 documents, which is the register of processing activities, both for the controller and for the data processor. The enforcement actions are usually on data breaches, or depending on the things, because marketing companies have been taken or faced enforcement actions for cold calling and spam emails and things. But as far as I'm aware, the Article 30 documentation has been used to sort of gauge whether or not an organization is being negligent in its approach to GDPR. So it hasn't been cited as a specific element, but it's helped build a case that a company has been negligent. So no, there isn't any case law that I'm aware of around Article 30 documentation. And the second part to that question, what would be common mistakes or best practice tips in terms of documenting processing activities? Now, the common mistake I've had is to go too granular, try and document every data element. The legislation itself is looking for descriptions of the data. And what you really need to do is capture every activity and to describe every activity. And also the ICO templates include an awful lot of information which is useful but is not required by the legislation. So you have to think of compiling all of this information and keeping it up to date, keeping it relevant. It takes time, it takes effort, and is a management overhead. Keeping it specific to what meets the regulation requirements and what is useful for you as a business and keeps things going is what's required. And so limit it to what you need and what is required. Use the templates as a template and adjust them to suit your own requirements. But bear in mind, you do have to meet the minimum regulatory requirements as laid out in the legislation. I apologise for the dogs barking, but that's their job. What would I say is the minimum requirement for cyber security? I would say the minimum, well, assuming the companies are doing the normal pen testing and infrastructure reviews and things, they generally neglect the staff, and I think it's a bad thing. If you can train your staff in how to be aware of what they're doing online, how to handle emails, spot phishing emails, how to be more savvy in their interaction with emails and with websites and things, it benefits you as an organization because they are more savvy and they are your first line of defense. But it benefits the staff themselves. When they go home, they're taking those lessons with them. They're going to be looking after their own accounts at home, their own PCs. So it's worthwhile training your staff in cybersecurity. I would say start with the staff. They are the minimum. They are your first line of defense. Look at the training packages. We provide training packages for this, and they've always been very, very well received because it's beneficial to the organization and it's beneficial to the staff when they go home. I would say that's an absolute minimum. But certainly all your normal pen tests and your Cyber Essentials Plus, they're a good start. They're more organizational focused. Invest in your staff. They are your first line of defense. And that's the end of the questions at the moment. I'm happy to take any more. Well, I've certainly enjoyed presenting the webinar, and I hope you've all found value from it. We are Risk Crew. I hope you get in touch with us. Send us a message or visit us on the website. That's our address. There's an email for you there and our phone number. Thank you very much for attending the webinar, and I hope you found it valuable.